So it seems like every week now there is a new rumor around a big studio or publisher acquisition. Recently, there have been a lot of talks around Ubisoft and if they are prepping themselves to be sold. We've heard some names floated around, but obviously we seem to come back to the console manufacturer, specifically Microsoft and Sony, seemingly every time because they have a lot to gain, technically, to buy one of these publishers or developers to add to their first-party lineup. Well, there's something else going on right now outside of just gaming with these private equity firms looking in, but also potential for other entertainment companies currently who are maybe even getting a little desperate, trying to seek out different ways to hold up their own services that could take the plunge. I wanted to go over that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. First of all, let's head over here. This was from Games Radar. It says Ubisoft is reportedly up for sale. Early acquisition talks are said to be underway. This reported from Bloomberg, saying talks are being held about the potential of several private equity firms acquiring Ubisoft. Talks are apparently early on, but include private equity firms like Blackstone and KKR. And it seems like right now Ubisoft is just kind of dotting their I's, crossing their T's, just getting all the paperwork and the books together in order to be able to accommodate a sale and the whole process there. Well, it seems, okay, like something we could see because we have been witnessing many acquisitions that I don't think any of us would have believed would even been possible. The one that comes to mind being Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard for like $70 billion. Still need to see if that goes through. I think a lot of us assume that it will. But even Sony coming in and buying Bungie, the studio who is responsible for creating, I still think, the best Halo games for Microsoft, just over a decade ago, now is with Sony. So when I hear about Ubisoft, we obviously start to think about larger companies that come in and swallow up what would be, I think, one that would probably be, I think, worth more than Bethesda and ZeniMax or right around that. But as we see right now, things are changing. Valuations keep getting bigger and bigger for these different companies. So I wouldn't be shocked if Ubisoft went for more than the $7.5 billion that we saw Bethesda, ZeniMax go for to Microsoft. So when I hear talks about Netflix struggling right now, I mean, we can see this was posted up, this from GameSpot. Netflix will offer nearly 50 games by the end of 2022. People looked at this and said, well, that looks like a knee-jerk reaction to some of their issues when it comes to retaining their current subscriber base. They're having a hard time, and their stock is not reacting favorably to this. It has absolutely cratered at this point. It's down like 30% or something. They've lost a lot of money in less than a week now. So we see this here as reported by the Washington Post. Video games are a specific focus, and Netflix intends to offer nearly 50 mobiles for people to play by the end of the year. These games are, as they say, like mobile kind of experiences. So think about, I guess, games that are a bit smaller, maybe on your phone, that would be offered on Netflix, I guess, as part of their subscription service. They've done games already. They did like Stranger Things, and they've actually even published titles, I believe, on other platforms. So it's not necessarily new for them to just start having games pop up. But at this frequency, at 50 games by the end of this year, I mean, that's a pretty good amount for Netflix to roll out in the next, 8 months or so. I started to think about it and said, okay, Netflix has a valuation of nearly $90 billion. Would they consider going in for an offer on Ubisoft just as a way to add more value to their subscription service, or even a step outside of that, generate more revenue overall, maybe to offset some of the issues they're currently seeing here with their subscription service, and act more as a parent company who would work to just release games under the Ubisoft name with the Ubisoft Originals for kind of what they're doing now with the title releases with Far Cry and Assassin's Creed and all of this, and then also continuing on the path of microtransactions for post-spend recurring revenue. I mean, if you look at right now what's going on with Netflix, they're trying to explain to investors why this is happening, that being them losing like hundreds of thousands of subscribers over a single quarter. And they're mentioning things like competition with Hulu, Disney Plus, and password sharing. I mean, a lot of people share passwords for Netflix accounts. That's not surprising to hear about, but also the stiff competition that's mostly doing the same thing that Netflix is, where you're just offering streamed, viewable content. The idea of having interactive content would be new in that space technically, and it might give them an edge over what we see here with Hulu and Disney Plus. And in fact, it might even let Netflix charge more if they do have frequent releases or if they just drop in larger titles. Now, you also get to the point of how do you deal with that when it comes to the hardware and the platforms that it's available on? And maybe that's where Netflix is more or less a publisher or a parent company for this, because I don't see any universe where Netflix would try to create their own console. So while we like to talk about Apple or Amazon or Tencent coming in, I'm going to throw Netflix into the mix here for a large publisher studio acquisition. Just something to keep an eye on here, since Netflix technically has the ability to make a purchase like that if they felt like it would really help them when it comes to their current situation. If they want to pivot more into games, which based on some of the hirings they have been doing, again, it wouldn't surprise me if they decide to go down that path just to add more value to their current subscription model. And then we also come back to Ubisoft and if they will be sold. I kind of think they will. I think that's going to happen by the end of this year. I wouldn't be shocked if it is to a private equity firm and just nothing changes. Basically, just the owners right now of Ubisoft want to cash in with where the valuations are currently and just sort of step away and ride off into the sunset with their piles of money. But sure, you could see Microsoft come in. I think Sony could swing it too, based on financing and all that. We always try to figure out which company could buy what, and could Sony afford it? Could Nintendo afford it? I feel like there's enough out there for any of these companies to make it happen. It just doesn't make sense for them. And Sony and Microsoft already get all these Ubisoft games, so it's like, does it make sense for them? The only reason it would is if they felt like they had to block potentially some other company coming in and taking over Ubisoft and making it so it's not a benefit to them any longer, maybe blocking games or anything there. And we've seen Microsoft act that way, apparently with Activision Blizzard. There was a concern that maybe Meta would come in and buy them, or even Amazon, because if that happens and there is this entire metaverse race that seems to be, ramping up now, Microsoft seemed concerned that that would be something that would give Meta or Amazon a leg up on them. So they decided to make the move. But we'll see about Ubisoft, and we'll also see about Netflix, because right now it sounds like they are very interested in games for their service. But how interested? I guess we'll find out. Let me know what you guys think about this, though, down below with Ubisoft seemingly getting ready to be up for sale, and maybe Netflix, a company that no one's really thought about, maybe they come in and make an offer and we hear about that. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.